Hello, I'm Graham Horton and welcome to this video. Now, they say that if you leave things long enough they actually come back into fashion, and I think that's particularly true in the photographic industry. There seems to be a resurgence now of the love of old cameras. If you look at these old cameras like this Panasonic Lumix FP2, it's a camera that was introduced in the early 2000s and is the first one to have installed in it a periscope camera lens. So the modern smartphones have just invented the periscope camera, but these were invented by Panasonic a long time ago, and it means you can have a very slim profile camera, one which would slip into your shirt pocket and was all you needed in those days to capture some vibrant pictures. It's got a flash, it's got a good lens, and that's all you needed. But there seems to be a resurgence in buying these old cameras. This one is actually the FS4, again from 2009. The love of the CCD type cameras, and this is the Panasonic Lumix LX5, which is a beautiful little camera. Even some of the travel zooms are coming back into vogue, and they're fetching quite good prices now on eBay. To try and match the aesthetics and looks of those cameras, we're looking at modern day cameras like this G7X Mark III, which has got a flip up screen, shoots in 4K, and is one that's loved by bloggers these days. So what's the aim of today's camera? Well, there seems to be a resurgence in actually looking for the look of these cameras. They're calling it the Y2K look, and if you remember, Y2K was the year that the dreaded computers would fall over and not function anymore because of the way that the file system worked on the old DOS-based programs. But also Y2K was the introduction of CCD cameras and pocketable cameras to enable you to go out and capture everyday life in bright vivid detail. And with those cameras, with the on-camera flash, a very small flash, you got really intense shadows and vivid colours and sometimes soft focus. That is the look that the Y2K people are now looking to achieve. So with these small cameras you need bright light or you need flash to accommodate that need. So today's video is all about a new flash system that's been introduced by Godox. Now if you follow my channel you see I've reviewed many Godox products. I think they're value for money, they seem to last quite well, and essentially you can get professional looking results from amateur grade products. So the one that's been introduced at the moment, and it's one that's been sent by Godox for me to review for you, so it was provided free of charge in return for a review. It's going to be an honest review. If there's problems with this you'll hear about it. I've not been told what to say, what I can't say. As with all my reviews, you'll get the full story behind the product itself. So this one is what's called the Godox IT30. This particular one is for Sony, but you can get them for Canon, Nikon, Fuji and also Sony, so it's across the board. What makes this special is the fact that it delivers TTL flash capability for your cameras. There are lots of these little flash units around, but they're not TTL, so it means they're manual only. So if you're going to take street pictures, party pictures, you're faffing around trying to get the exposure right by dialing in the correct manual exposure to give you the exposure that you need. With TTL on camera flash, obviously the camera will determine the exposure by monitoring the light that's hitting the lens and therefore gives you the correct exposure. So we're going to have a closer look at this and all the features, such the fact that this will now replace some of the earlier transmitters that Godox introduced for the range of flashes. This one is the X1, there's also the X Pro, and there's also now what's called the X3, which is again a smaller version of this but without the flash. But in fact this device with the flash included is actually cheaper than the X3 flash commander, so you're going to get the best of both worlds. So this can actually transmit the X series commands to a range of flashes. Here I've got the Nikon flash, the Olympus flash, the Canon flash and the Fuji flash. So if you're going to be using this commander on the top of your camera, if it was a Sony one or a Canon one, it requires on the TTL interface from the camera to the flash unit, but then the flash unit will transmit the X code across the whole range of cameras, so you will end up with the correct exposure for your Canon, Nikon, Fuji, whatever. The Xcode is a fantastic way. It works with even the bigger studio flashes like this AD200, or even mammoth flashes like this one, which is the AD600. So studio grade flashes can be commanded from this little device on the top of your point and shoot camera, so you can get some particularly good studio results. But we're not interested in that. We're interested in an on-camera flash to reproduce this Y2K look. So on-camera flash, direct shadows without any need for fill. We seem to have gone full circle. We used to spend a lot of time getting the exposure contrast ratio right with our flash, so the shadows were 2:1 ratio from the main subject, but now it doesn't seem to matter. People want to capture the moment, and it doesn't matter if there are black shadows behind the subject, if there are glaring bright highlights from the things around. It doesn't matter. People want the minute that they capture that image. So this flash is an ideal solution if you've got a camera like this one, the Sony ZV-E10. But if you've got any of the other cameras, the Fuji half frame or the Canon small compact cameras which take their own camera flash, you can attach this and get some fantastic results. Let's have a look at the XT30 on the ZV-10, and I'll take you through all the setups of this device and how you can use it in your photography. So when you unbox the product, what you'll find inside the packaging are the following components. We have the flash unit itself, we get a nice little carry case, and we get the Type A to Type C charging cable, so you can charge this device from the Type C socket here on the side. Let's have a look around the flash unit itself. So this little unit just measures 65mm by 46mm by 47mm, including the foot, and that's for the Sony product. It weighs just over 560 grams, and again that will depend on the actual model as to what interface shoe is on the bottom, etc., but round about 560 grams for the weight. So this one is the ITS version, which is for the Sony, but as I said in the introduction, you can get this for Nikon, Fuji, Canon and Sony, so you've got the whole range of main manufacturers available there. So that will change the designation of the foot which is on the unit. So this one has got the Sony motor interface shoe, which will align with the ZV-E10. It will align with my Sony RX10 Mark IV, and also on the Sony Alpha. This one's the A7 III, but it will interface with all the MI interface Sony cameras. So continuing our look around this device, on the top we have the little window here which is for optical sensing. This will supply flash responses to infrared transmission. S1 where the flash will fire directly on receipt of the first pulse from your master flash, or S2 where it will suppress any pre-flashes and then fire after that. We've got a adjustment knob here which allows you to change some of the settings. On the back of the device we have a full colour touchscreen, and if I just turn on the unit by just pressing the power button, hold that for about 2 seconds, it then asks you to rotate the knob to unlock it, and now you can see the main screen. So the parameters you can change either by using the top control dial, so if I wanted to change the flash power if I was in manual mode, or I can use my finger on the slide to change the value, or I can use the plus and minus. So you've got various options there that you can use the touchscreen interface for. We've got 2 buttons here, set and menu, and this one doubles up as the on-off button and the flash test facility. On the side of this unit we've got a little slide switch which switches from normal flash to wide angle flash. So when you switch to wide angle flash, it will introduce another Fresnel lens in there to give you that wider look. So there's the internal device for giving you a wide or narrow angle flash. On this side we've got the Type-C charging port. Now I've not had it confirmed, but I guess this could be there to update firmware as well. We've got a 2.5mm socket here, which is for external flash synchronization. So even if you haven't got a camera which has got a hot shoe but it has the PC socket, you can trigger this flash by using that PC cable, as we'll see later in the video. On the bottom we've got the multi-interface shoe with its locking lever, which is at the back, so it detents and locks this into place on the Sony shoe. To set this up, we've got various options on the touchscreen. If I swipe down from the top, you can see I can set up my wireless parameters, I can set up the flash mode, so we're in the manual, multiple mode, so that I can fire 100 shots in 10 seconds or whatever I want to set that multi-mode to be. I can set TTL, so this is the beauty of this device. It does support direct TTL from your camera to give you the correct exposure for the flash. Now the guide number of this flash is 16, and that's based on an ISO of 100. So it's more powerful than most of the pop-up flashes you get on your little camera, so you can use this up to a greater distance. And in fact this will actually show you the distance that you can use it at. So that's TTL. The top menu will take me back into the main menu here. So the trigger distance, I can set the trigger distance to 0 to 30 meters or 1 to 100 meters, depending on where I'm using this indoors or outdoors. So you've got that option there. Moving along, we've got the S1 or S2 photocell, so I can either have it off so it will not respond to any flash pulses. S1 where we'll just deal with the first synchronization pulse, or S2 which will suppress the pre-flash and then fire the flash. So for this moment we'll turn that off. Back to menu, TCM, we've got the standby parameter, so if I wanted to set the standby I can turn that on or off. If you turn it into standby you'll be indicating you're in standby by the green light will flash. Power on and off, and the auto standby, so you can have from off to 30 minutes up to 90 minutes. So we'll just set that to off for the moment. Screen standby will allow it to turn off the screen to provide some power saving. Screen brightness, we can change the screen brightness. If we're going to be working indoors or outdoors, we can set the screen brightness. This one, new agreement, it's for the Sony global shutters on the later cameras with global shutter, will provide a synchronization of up to 1/80,000th of a second, an incredibly fast speed for flash, so 80,000 if you are using the global shutter. Languages, and reset the camera. Device info will set, so it's a model IT30 model IT30 Pro S, and it's version 105. So if there are any updates then we should be able to check whether that's the current version. If we swipe down from the top we can see we've got our wireless setup, and if I swipe down again you can see we've got the flash setup and also the mode that the flash will operate in. So that little symbol means that it's on camera flash, but if I touch that it can be the commander, so this will output pulses, or it can be a receiver and it will take in pulses from any other X Pro series flash commander, and this unit will then respond to those commands rather than through the TTL interface. So we're going to set it first of all back to the on camera flash mode. We've got this set to TTL, but of course we can use it in manual mode, and if we swipe up you can see we've got the M indicating we're in manual mode, and the power which we can adjust using either the top control dial down to 1/128th up to full power. Multi-mode, when we swipe up you can see we've got the actual flash intensity and 5 flashes based on a frequency of 5 Hz. So if you want to set them Then we go into set and we can change the number of flashes. So you can see we can have 100 flashes, and if we go set we can vary the frequency they'll flash at. So this will be 100 flashes at 1 second interval. So when this fires we'll get 100 flashes for 1 second. So our shutter speed must actually be 100 seconds for us to record all of those. You probably use this for high speed photography where you want to capture a golf swing or a balloon bursting or whatever. So that's the reason we would use multi-mode. So you can see there we're now going into the hundred flashes at 1 second interval. Just switch into another mode to cancel it if you want to do that. Let me put this on top of the camera and we can see how the interface works with the IT30 Pro. And so we have the motor interface of the ZVE10. I'm just going to slide the flash unit onto the camera like so. And now if we look on the back of the camera, I'm going to turn on the camera, the lens will actually extend. And let's turn the screen round so we can see what is happening. I'll just zoom out a little bit. So we can see on the back of the camera the fact that the flash is installed on the multi-interface is automatically set the exposure time to be 1/60th of a second. I'm in aperture priority mode so I can control the aperture, and I've got a manual ISO set here of 100. So those parameters will pass through to the flash to determine the exposure with the TTL mode. So let's just turn on the exposure screen. So with the exposure compensation, flash exposure compensation, we have the facility of doing +3 to -3 in increments of 1/3 EV. So those are the flash exposure compensation. You can of course do that from your menu on your Sony camera if you want to do that by that method. But with the nice control knob on top you can actually do that. Now you might be able to see here on the display, if I just bring it back into brightness, the range at which the flash will operate under, so from 0 meters to just over 2 meters with the exposures we've got set on the camera at the moment. Obviously that will depend on your ISO and it will depend on your aperture as to what range the flash will work under. Let's now look at setting up Wi-Fi on this device so we can control an external flash. So the first thing we need to do is to go into the menu and swipe down until we see the symbol which is showing it as an on-camera flash. We're going to change that to one where the arrows are pointing outwards, if you like. So this is now acting as a commander. We can then go into the wireless setup and we can select the channel that we want the commander to work on. So I've set channel 2 on here. On our peripheral device, here I've got the Godox IT30. This is Olympus Panasonic version, not a Sony version, so this will show you the Godox X series in operation. So here I set up channel 2, so the 2 will communicate on channel 2. Here I selected group A, which is going to be the group for this flash, so anything I do will control from group A. I can have the on-camera flash active. In this case it's going to be no exposure compensation, and here the channel A is going to be 1/128th. So here we've got the master channel, if you like, which is the flash on camera. It's currently got exposure compensation of 0, but I want to turn off the flash that's on camera. I just want to use this as a wireless commander for the external flash. So if we touch the exposure compensation and hold that for a couple of seconds, we can turn the master off. So with the master turned off, we can now control the groups individually. So here I've got group A, so I'm going to change this to a 16th power, and you can see as I'm changing the value here on the commander, it's being echoed by the remote flash. So if I want that to a 16th power, you can see that the remote flash now will be set to 1/16th power. So when the camera fires over channel 2 and group A, we will have an exposure of 1/16th of a power. So if I just press the shutter button on the camera, the flash will fire with a value of a 16th power. If I wanted to set up multiple groups, so let's now bring in another flash unit, turn this on, and this one is group A, so what I'm going to do is change the group of this to group B. So by changing that to group B, I can now set the power on group B independently. At the moment it's off, so I'm going to turn on group B, and we'll have that to, so I'm going to change group B to half power, and you can probably just see here on the flash that the power has been set to 1/2 power. So when the flash fires, it will fire group A at 1/32 power, and it will fire group B at 1/2 power, and if there's any C flash, then it will fire that with a +2 EV. So let me fire the flash, and you can see there's a much stronger flash from the B channel compared to the A channel. For completeness, we'll just set up another flash here, and I will set this to group C, just wedge that up so there's no light shining on the display. So I'm going to set up group C, and press and hold, you change from the EV value to a fractional. So here we got a 32 plus 1/3 of an EV. So when I press the shutter button, all three flashes will fire. A will be at 1/2 power, A will be at a 32, B will be at 1/2, and C will be at 1/32 plus 1/3. So there we saw the commander being able to command 3 groups, A, B and C, with individual powers for each, and that doesn't matter whether it was a full-size flash, studio flash or a small flash, it will do that wirelessly as we've seen. You can also use an external transmitter to fire the on-camera flash if you like, by changing the setup, and if we just look at that briefly. So to use this unit as a receiver, it has to be disconnected from the camera, so remove it from the camera, and now we can go into the setup, and if you look at the icon there, it's on camera flash, using it as a commander, and now with the icon facing inwards, we're using this as a receiver. So if we again go into the Wi-Fi setup, we're going to be on channel 2, and we're going to control it from an external trigger. So here I've got the X Pro 2 trigger, and I've set this up to be on channel 2 and group A. So channel 2, group A. At the moment it's in manual mode. I need to communicate between the transmitter and the receiver by using the lightning symbol here, which will fire a pulse across and set the parameters up on the flash. So when I do that, you can see that it's now transferred the power that I've set on the commander to the remote flash, and now I can change the value on A and you can see the value is changing on the flash. So I could use this as a remote flash with a low power or high power, depending on how I want to set it up. So you can have a multiple scene with the remote flash commanded by the trigger, and the trigger could be on a Canon camera, Fuji camera, it doesn't matter, it will transfer over the X protocol to the commander. If you want the flash to be locked in position, then again, if you pull down the menu, there is a lock command, and you just hold that. It says press and hold for 2 seconds to unlock it. So at the moment, so with the screen locked, it means I can't change any of the parameters, I can't use the top control dial. So everything is locked out now, so the only way to release that is to press and hold the screen for 2 seconds, then it will release, and then you've got control of the power again from the screen or from the top control dial. With this flash, it's better to use it with pancake lenses such as this 16-50 on the ZVE1. If you've got a longer lens such as this lens here on the A7, which is the 28-70, if I was to mount that directly on the hot shoe, then it would shade with the front end of the lens, casting a shadow on the lower part of your picture. To overcome that, you can get these riser, and this one is again from Godox. This one is especially for the Sony shoe, so again that would slip into the Sony shoe, and then you could mount the flash in that device like so. So it raises the flash above the point at which these will shade, and it also gives you the facility of being able to use this as a bounce flash. So again, you can angle the head to bounce it from a ceiling or from a wall. It doesn't unfortunately have a swivel action, which would be nice, but obviously because of the constraint of having the ribbon cable in here, that's not possible, but it does give you the facility for a bounce operation. And again, you can use that with the other Sony cameras if you're using a longer lens. So there we are, that is the Godox IT30 flash unit, a really remarkable piece of kit for the price of what, £67 here in the UK for this particular model, cheaper than the X Pro 3 trigger, which does the same feature except you don't have the inbuilt flash capacity. Hope you like this review. If you do, why not give me a like, and if you're a new viewer and haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do hit the subscribe button, and if you want to be notified when I upload new videos to the channel, also hit that bell notification icon. So until my next video, thanks again for watching, please do take care, and hope to see you all very, very soon. Goodbye for now.